yet. Not ready yet. Not ready yet.
Hello YouTube, you ready to witness a murder? Because metaphorically speaking, Skye got killed and the nerf hammer just hit her so hard. It's something that pros ask for such a long time, but it is now here, weirdly enough, 3 weeks before the start of the season, which leaves the teams in a very awkward spot. So let's analyze what changes are happening in the patch 8.01 and how will this most likely affect not only compositions but the metagame overall, and some of the teams how they should probably just improvise or just stay at Skye, who knows. Let's just jump in. Patch 8.01 has a lot more changes than just Skye, but Skye is the biggest one of the bunch and we're going to talk about it first. So let's just jump straight into the Skye changes. Essentially what's happening here is that the guiding light, so the flash, is no longer regenerating charges during a round. And then guiding light also automatically activates the flash at the end of its lifetime, so you cannot not flash the flash, essentially. And also Seekers are getting the yellow indicator back on it because that was removed at some point, and I think it's not a big deal that this is being re-added, because even during a normal round when nothing is happening, you never knew if you're being targeted by the Skye ult or not. So that's not really that big of a deal. But the guiding light, that is straight up a killer move and it's a kick in the teeth for Skye players and overall metagame. So why does this matter so much? First and foremost, because of the lack of regeneration. Think about it this way. If you're playing Skye and you're not getting killed during like mid-round, early game or whatever, you are typically probably gonna use around 4 flashes in a round, because round goes for 1 minute and 40. You're gonna use 1 flash at the beginning of round to get informations, and then during the duration of the round you're probably gonna just still use 2 more, right? That's 3. And then when the postman is happening and you are doing a retake, you are probably gonna get your 4th back, which is, now when you think about it, double the amount that you're gonna have to use now. And not only that, you are probably not gonna even use a 1 flash at the beginning of the round anymore, because that is just essentially 50% of your flashes being used for information gathering, specifically on defense, for example, on bind long, that will not longer have a lot of value if it just doesn't hit, right? So on hides, and you essentially lost that 1 flash for the entirety of the round. It's a big nerf. But the thing is, let's quickly jump into the pick rates and see how this might change, because right now the way you're using Skye, who is so flexible and just is filling more than 1 role with just 1 agent, is gonna have to be substituted, right? So I'm taking here from runitback.gg the stats for patch 7.2 from all regions, but this includes champions, right? So this is like a big data pool when it was peak of the last year, and we're gonna actually just remove all of the maps and we're gonna go through the entirety of the map pool. As you can see, Skye is on 4th place with 44.7% pick rate overall, which is insane, right? The most picked initiator. The second one is Sova with almost 39%, but that's solely because he is just kinda like a legacy agent on few of the maps. Now, let's talk about the maps themselves, right? So we have Ascent. That's one of the legacy maps. Some teams tried playing Skye here, but still, like, the main composition is this one. This is why I hate the map. The map is just so boring because majority of the teams are just playing this. 8 out of 10 teams are gonna play this composition, which is absolutely insane, right? So please get Ascent out of the map pool, Riot. Thank you very much. So let's not talk about Ascent. Let's talk about Bind. Bind is where 9.5 teams out of 10 are playing Skye. Think about that as well, right? There's a little bit more flex when it comes to the 5th agent, maybe even the 4th, but majority is just double controller and Skye. Skye directly affects the fact that you can play double controller, because Skye functions as a recon and a flash agent to support the duelist. something you would not have been able to do with a Sova, for example, right? Or with a Fade. So all of those problems here are like being, I think, in the spotlight, because this map, this composition, the double controller here is enabled by this Skye flexibility. Now, let's just jump through quickly through the other maps. Breeze was not being played, but predominantly that's a Sova map, right? Fracture, of course, we're gonna have a Breach on top of, and then Skye alongside Fade. Now, this really depends also how teams are gonna approach this map in the future. But now with the Skye, I was thinking maybe we're gonna get Skye more in the future, but this is not coming back for sure. Then on Haven, this is, of course, another legacy map where double initiators is a thing. But as you can see, even when someone is not playing Breach and Sova, the next pick is Skye, right? Then we're gonna have Icebox. That was not being played, but we know it's a Sova map, right? Lotus is a map that is almost exclusively played by two initiators, that's Skye and Fade, which is by the way very surprising to me, because for me, the best initiator for this map is actually Breach, which is on the 3rd spot. But this is gonna totally change as well. And this is also a map with double controllers, right? So you're gonna have to think about how do you want to approach this map now without Skye. Unless, of course, teams would like to actually still play Skye because they don't have enough time to actually make changes. Because this patch is being introduced now and the season starts in 3 weeks. Professional teams need a lot more time to completely revamp the composition. So we might actually see still the compositions being unchanged with this Skye, but with Head just being very weak. That's a real possibility, right? After that, we have Pearl, almost exclusively Skye being played. To some degree also K, of course, because of the prevalence of the Killjoy and Cyphers. And then we have Split, which is like, yeah, there's essentially Skye, and if you play double dive, then you cannot really play Breach, and if you play Breach, then you probably play only one duelist, because Skye is just so good when it comes to just using the dog, right? So as you can see, there's a problem with Skye just being like an enabler of an entire composition. Again, double controller comps on Split, right? Just because her ability of squeezing in so much value with her utility is actually incredible, right? And that's a big issue. So for context now, let's think about Bind. Bind is a map where Skye almost exclusively plays on long. She's gonna, at the beginning of the round, flash long for info, right? And because of that, she's gonna now adjust the plan, right? This is something that happens in probably majority of the games, and then the Skye probably is gonna go with the dog through showers and get a lot of information to see if someone is either in front or inside of the showers, or maybe even crossing through, and to help the players from A. And while she is still, remember, on a recharge of her Skye Flash, right? Which essentially makes her incredibly important on this map. Now, if we don't play Skye right here on Bind, how do we supplement this character with other characters? So I was thinking about it, and right now, those are the options for the teams. In my eyes, many teams were gonna think about potentially just using Gecko as a possibility to use him instead of Skye on long. But the thing is that he doesn't deliver the same recurring value if you want to help showers, because if you're gonna use Dizzy to flash info for long, which is a possibility, you can use a Gecko like this by bouncing it from this metal plate over the teleport, and the Dizzy is gonna come back straight up to you. So because of that and the incredibly fast pickup duration, you're gonna get a lot of recurring value of checking long, but you're not gonna use it to check through showers, because then you cannot retrieve your flash back unless you TP. Same happens to Wingman. You're gonna put it there, well, he's not gonna come back, right? So that's an issue. That is something that you're not gonna replicate with Gecko, although he brings other values, right? But the thing is, all of his util is shootable. So he doesn't deliver, again, the same value as Skye, which birds cannot be destroyed anymore. But Gecko's stuff can be just shot. So you don't have the certainty. You don't have the absolute 100% perfect info, because your util is gonna be shut down, your flash is not gonna have like 100% value, but it can be comboed with other flashes if you have like a KO or a Yoru and combine them together to certainly like flash someone who's looking at that direction. But again, this creates a lot more complex situations, and also still like it's something that you need to practice. It's a lot of practice hours, and not many teams will have that with the implementation of the patch right now. So Gecko is a viable option, but I wouldn't say it's an option that will be 100%. It's similar, but it doesn't deliver the same value. There's an upside, of course, also using Wingman to plant, which is essentially very valuable on attack. But now, a very similar value you get is KO. KO has a tool that recharges, so we have the dagger, can be used for checking long or checking showers, but not both, right? You don't have the secondary tool that can be used to check showers. You can only flash someone through showers, so you can throw the disc through the showers, explode it somewhere in the middle of the entrance, or like in front of the entrance like this, so you don't flash your teammate that is standing in showers, and then your teammate from showers can take a gunfight. But there's again no certainty in info, and it's completely different than how would you play Skye. The only similarity would be that you have a recurring informational tool in form of the dagger. The ultimate, just same as Gecko, is a big opener, right? But KO has the upside of removing completely any sentinels essentially from the game during that duration. So I really like KO's ultimate, and I think there's a lot of value, but still not the greatest pick when it comes to choosing him over Skye to like kind of slide in right into the old composition. Now Fade is probably the most sensible option if you just forget about the fact that she doesn't have flashes, right? But if she doesn't have flashes, then maybe you're going to incorporate a duelist that has flashes instead. This is why the Yoru's here, but we're going to talk about it in a moment. Now, with Fade, you are able to actually supplement a lot of the potential value that Skye had on this map while only losing the flashes. Well, only quote unquote, right? So, opener can be an eye on the long and essentially get the same kind of information that we would get out of Skye. Then for showers, you have your prowlers that you can use to go through there and get a little bit of info. Remember though that the FOV of the prowlers is not the best, so you have to be very skilled with Fade to be certain that you're checking the corners, right? And then you have also Seize, which is a great tool to help players in showers and stop them from pushing, right? There should be a way of putting it like in the middle. Yeah. So it affects like players in front of showers. Also, you can't forget about the fact that you can stand in garden and actually throw it to hookah. If I remember this lineup, I made it some time ago. Let me check. Yeah, I actually remember it. You can make it a little bit better, but essentially you can help the players in hookah while playing still long, right? And then your ultimate is one of the best ultimates in the game. Like, it has incredible value. It's an incredible initiation tool. Makes your prowlers absolutely insane, better than seekers when you think about it. Like, when you ult the side and you get tags, your prowlers essentially become giga buffed and now are better than the ultimate from the Skye. And you get also the value out of the ultimate from Fade by removing the HP of the players, the Reversal Decay, right? Then you have the 12-second deafness, so they cannot hear anything for 12 seconds. Like, that's insane value. And you also get the trailers, right? The trails, so you kind of know where the players are. So you combine that with prowlers, if you didn't use them before, and you shouldn't if you have the ult, and suddenly that side is completely opened. So I think Fade is probably the best option out of the bunch when it comes to the initiators, because Sova can deliver similar value, but his drone is incredibly just slow, so it only goes, if I remember correctly, his drone can reach this line, while Skye can reach essentially here with the dog if she goes with the dog like this, right? So there's a huge difference in the ability to gather informations with the drone if you want to help the showers with it. And also the ultimate from Sova is just so much worse than the other initiators. Like the ultimate is much worse than Geckos, much worse than Chaos, and much worse than Fades. The ultimate from Sova is just much more restrained in its proactiveness because the range is huge, but the area of effect is not huge at all. While the other agents have much more agency with their ults, cover more ground or get more informations, or just our raw power. The only upside of Sova, if you want to use him instead of the Skye on bind again, would be the shock darts if you're gonna play against teams who play Cypher or Killjoy. Like the shock darts are the MVP utility to clear utility, right? So having shock dart lineups from the beginning of the round that are gonna land on the initial like positions of the traps, so like, you know, something like this is incredibly potent because you're able to destroy the traps from the entrance and from inside of the site, on the hookah as well, side here itself, then from A side, clearing anything on site, nanoswarms and postplat as well. There's so many uses for the shock darts when it comes to removing the utility, and that's how primarily they should be used on a pro level. Now, when it comes to Breach, I don't think he gets the same kind of like the way you would have to play the game with a Breach instead of a Skye on this map would essentially change everything, because he is not something that gathers you any informations, right? He has the ability of the stun to like battle for the map control early on, so you're able to like stun, for example, long early to make sure that you can peek and swing and try to get the control, stun in front of showers, but you have to play on A to do that, right? And then your teammates can peek off that stun and try to get into gunfights. But again, all of those plays are more like aggressive map control, and they are completely different playstyle than the passive but proactive usage of recon utilities. And that's how typically teams would like to play bind, because they don't want to fully commit to whatever they want to do in the first place. Now, why did I mention also here Yoru? Yoru is one of those agents that is incredibly flexible, is so good on bind as well. So this is something that is gonna be in my eyes played a lot, and also has the tool of initiation with his clone. Now his clone, specifically also when you use the gun drop technique that I invented, so he runs with a knife, and this looks something like this. You put the clone on the ground. If you have guns, you throw them away on the ground or in the middle of the air, and then you flick to activate the clone, and now he runs with a knife. Not only he's faster than normal one, but also covers more ground because, again, he's faster. So people will actually shoot this most likely, and you will gather informations because of that, if someone is there or not, right? But also it's an initiation tool for attacking site and destroying traps. Maybe not destroying it anymore because of the Cypher changes, but Killjoy nanoswarms are gonna most likely be activated. The armor bot gets triggered, the turret starts shooting it, Deadlock gets completely counted, but no one plays Deadlock, so that's not important. And so there's like an initiation tool for this character. He is incredibly mobile because of the TPs, and also like you have a very potent one-way flash for the long, so essentially control the long by yourself, right? And also you have an ultimate that essentially is like one seeker but with a gun, right? So that's incredibly powerful. And if you will change the composition for an initiator that doesn't have flashes, or his flashes are not as powerful as the Skye, so like for example Gecko, right, or the Fade, suddenly you have a very potent composition that still has a lot of flexibility. But the problem is, if you want to do that, you're gonna need a player that has incredible amount of experience on Yoru, and that might not happen. But in general, this theorycraft, I think, can be summed up with two things. I don't think teams will have, one is gonna be the teams don't have enough time to actually practice with completely new compositions, so they're gonna most likely just use Skye again on bind, and probably other maps if she's gonna be used, or they will just gonna go back to the, let's say, comfort pick for the initiator. So if the initiator in the team is like a Sova main, he probably still has incredible amount of experience on the map that Skye was being used, and they were just gonna slot in Sova and think about probably playing with flashes or using a duelist with flashes, right? KO players are completely like probably happy because now Cracks, for example, will be able to play KO on almost every map and instead of this guy, right? But again, this requires a lot of experience on the agent himself. But in general, the second option will be some teams are gonna completely flip their compositions and try out new stuff, and I hope that will happen, but the results will vary and not many teams will be fully prepped at the beginning of the season. And with the importance of every match, this is an incredibly awkward timing for such a huge change to Skye. So I'm not sure what Riot is thinking here, but this is gonna be incredibly weird situation in the beginning of VCT. Now let's briefly touch on the other changes. Breeze has its hole reopened, which is incredibly nice because the map was right now feeling like just a big ascent, and that made me very miserable to play it. I loved the old Breeze, and the new Breeze was just making me mad just because of this change right here, right? They closed out this entire maps area and no one was using it because there was no point, right? And also there was a bug which made the doors open at the beginning of the round, which was, I think, nice, and now they're gonna be closed because it was a bug, which is kind of interesting. But making the holes appear back into the map, I think, saves the map because the other changes are pretty good. The mid area changes, I think, are very solid. The removal of cave makes it easier to play post plant and retakes. It makes it harder to play post plant but easier for the retakes, which makes sense because the map is dominantly attack sided if we get the holes back, right? But the holes were the identity of the map and allowed the lurks to happen, allowed players to be a little bit more creative with the way they approach the game on this map, and it was badly needed to have it back. So that's a good decision by Riot. They said that they wanted to introduce this in the overall changes in the previous patch, but they didn't have time to ship it, so it's one patch later. And again, this is really awkward because the pro scene was already practicing on the new Breeze without holes. So what the hell, Riot? Teams just sacrifice so much time. The map is just fundamentally different from what they practice. So that's a wasted time. I don't know. Now let's talk about ISO for a moment. He had some positive changes, but nothing fundamentally changing the way he's being played. So I don't think that will matter in the end unless someone already plays him and he's just happy that his agent just got better, because the changes are pretty significant, specifically for the double tap trap. Yeah, that should be tap, by the way. That's the orb, essentially, and the reload speed that you get on when it's active, right? When you press double tap, your reload speed gets sped up, but also you have, whenever you get a kill, you had 2 seconds to shoot the small orb to get your shield. Now that's extended to 3 seconds, which is nice, because when you had 2 seconds and you had to swap the gun to a pistol to shoot it, for example, when you had a sniper, it was almost impossible to get it in time. Now you have that small window of opportunity to actually shoot the shield without completely being in panic mode. Now, the initial buff and the shield duration increased from 15 seconds to 20, which is nice, but again, doesn't really change fundamentally the way you play ISO, so it's just a nice change for someone who's already playing him. The shield width reduced from 120 units to 100 units. I'm not certain what the unit in this kind of means, because the units that we use in the game are like 1000 is like 10 meters, I think, or actually 1 meter. That's the thing. I can't remember even the units because they don't have like any legend or measurements here. So, but the point is, the bulb that you get around your character when you have the shield on is gonna be smaller, so it's gonna be harder to see you when you approach like an edge of a wall, because people would pre-fire you because they see you faster than you would see them because your character is suddenly wider. You're still gonna be wider, but less than before. So again, a nice change for already ESO players that play him. Now the contingency, that's the wall. It was very awkward to me as well why the wall was so expensive, because it feels like the reason for playing this agent as a duelist is the wall, and making it giga expensive like 250 makes it really awkward to buy. So now you're able to actually play on a pistol round with full util, because you can buy your wall, you can buy 2 of your debuffs, and you have 1 shield, and you have a classic and small shields, which makes him very potent on pistol rounds. He is able to open a site with his wall, run in with 2 debuffs, spamming in left and right, which essentially makes all of the pistols into sheriffs, because they suddenly deal 2 body hits to kill a player if they didn't have small shields, which is incredibly powerful, right? But that's just the pistol round. But it is a huge change for the pistol rounds for ESO. But again, it's not something that fundamentally changes the way that you play this agent, and because of that, I don't think he's gonna have a place in the metagame. Now, Raze changes are very small. They're essentially just sound changes, something that I'm almost certain I have read in the patch notes already 5 times. So audio for Raze traveling through the air with Blast Pack is now louder when she's traveling towards you. I'll be honest with you, I really think Riot already made this change several times in the patch notes, but it's very, like, rarely that impactful. So we'll see how it goes into the game, if it's actually big enough to make a difference. Hopefully for this time it will actually work. Now, this change is actually pretty big. Projectile jump throw normalization. I have always said when I was making lineups for every single character that I want to avoid doing jump throws lineup because they're inconsistent in this game. Now, so if you press the throw projectile input within 100 milliseconds of the jump start, the projectile will consistently have the same amount of velocity imparted from the thrower, and as a result land consistently in the same location. Now, we don't know yet how it works in game because I didn't have the chance to try it out yet, but there are 2 possibilities here. One, maybe we'll able to use double binds for using like lineups, right? So you're gonna bind using your skill with a jump to use it at the same time, and because of that, that's gonna literally is gonna be possible. Before that, you were not able to do that because it just didn't work consistently well enough. So we'll see how that works now, right? And even if that doesn't work, you're gonna have a 100 millisecond window, which is pretty big, to have consistent result. So with a little bit of practice, you're gonna have the ability to make this very consistent, which will result in many of the agents now have important lineups being made, or like, let's say, remade because of that. I always avoided the jump lineups, but now with this might actually be a reason to check it out and see if it makes any sense. So good job, Riot. Hopefully this is gonna be a good change, and we'll see. I will report back with results once I check this. Now, when it comes to bug fixes, we actually have some important bug fixes. I didn't play a lot of Gecko lately, but his explosion from his ultimate was essentially blocked by some geometry stuff, so this might be a big one for the Gecko players. I always had people complaining about the Raze ult and sometimes the Gecko ult, so maybe something is, you know, happening here, and that's why it's being changed. Now, this is actually pretty huge, and I'm very happy to see this. Both ESO and Reynas will now have their utility being spawned when you kill bots in the range, so you're gonna be able to practice shield shooting for ESO in the practice range, and you're gonna be able to practice like dismisses from the in the range with the practice bots, which is awesome. The shooting test is essentially the test when you have to like hit like 30 bots in some time, so that's not gonna happen in that moment, but on practice you will be able to do that, which is awesome. And I would probably use ESO for practice range just to have more targets with changeable positions, right? Because otherwise you're still stuck with normal bots, but here you're gonna have ability to shoot a bot and a shield in a different position, so you're able to practice a little bit of like micro flicks. Other changes that we have here are not really important. And that's essentially patch 801. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown and potential outcomes of the Skye death. Check out the other videos. There's a video about Outlaw and the mechanics of it. This is a new channel, so I would really love to if you just consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel and showing it to your friends. More content coming in the future. If you have any requests of specific educational Valorant content, leave it in the reply.